ward. Before a vaccination for polio became available, it caused the death of millions of children. In the 1930s, children with polio had to be treated in an iron lung. This is a photo of an iron lung ward in a hospital. Based on the number of children in the ward and the fact that there were thousands like it all over the United States, this photo shows you how scary and horrifying the epidemic really was. Number 2. The Demon Family. This is one of the most scary historical photos from the past. People have been taking family photos for centuries. Most people who have vintage photos of their great-great-grandparents hold on to these photos not only because they are a great piece of family history, but also because the photos are amazing. This family photo is the exception. It is the picture of a mother, father, and their child. The family in the photo doesn't even look alive. The parents look like the undead, and the child looks like some sort of ghost. This is one family photo that should either be destroyed or kept buried in a drawer very deep. Number 3. Fire victims. Many people who have seen this photo think it is the aftermath of a disaster. You can see people who are burned, dead, and there are even decapitated heads on the ground. It took a bit of investigation, and the cause of the disaster was finally uncovered. There was a fire in the building, but it wasn't really a disaster. The bodies in the photo are just mannequins that were in the building when the fire broke out. Fortunately, nobody perished in the fire, and the only victims were the mannequins in the shop. Number 4. Ghouls in the night. Taken out of context, this is a really frightening picture. It looks almost as though the photographer found proof that ghosts, ghouls, and the undead actually exist. This is not the case. This is actually a still photo from the 1922 horror film Nosferatu. It is one of the first full-length horror movies, and the graphics likely weren't what they are today. However, if you don't know the backstory of this picture, it can still be incredibly frightening. Number 5. Bird-headed people. This picture is very frightening. At first glance, it looks like two bird-headed people having a conversation. Maybe they are witches. Maybe they're part of some sort of coven that is responsible for eating human hearts. In reality, this is a photo of two friends wearing masks. There isn't really anything scary about it. Without the backstory, though, it's possible to make up a variety of very frightening scenarios. Number 6. An actual photo of hell. This looks like a photo of a group of people in the waiting room to hell. The ghouls and the monsters on the walls look as though they are looking over the people, making sure that they stay seated until it is their turn to take that long walk downstairs. Since most of the people in the photo are smiling, it obviously is not hell. Also, since nobody has ever gone to hell and come back, there has to be another explanation for this photo. It is actually a picture of a famous restaurant in Paris called Hell's Cafe. This photo was taken in the 1890s, and sadly, it is not open today. Number 7. Halloween costumes in the olden days. When you see kids go out for Halloween today, you'll see them dressed as ninjas, superheroes, princesses, babies, and the occasional ghost or zombie. For the most part, Halloween costumes today are not the least bit scary. Years ago, however, the whole point of dressing up for Halloween was to be as scary as possible. The woman in this picture understood the point of Halloween and came up with a pretty freaky costume. It's hard to know what she's supposed to be, but if the goal was to be scary, she hit it on the mark. Why she's wearing roller skates is a mystery. Number 8. Futuristic robots. This picture looks pretty crazy if you don't know what is going on. No, it's not a picture of two men trying to create a robot that's capable of taking over the world. It's actually two Disney engineers. These two techs are trying to repair an animatronic figure that is meant to entertain visitors of Disney World. Number 9. Mickey Mouse gas mask. In the middle of the Cold War, people were terrified. They believed that at any second a nuclear bomb would wipe out the entire world. Those who managed to survive the blast were expected to die soon after from the nuclear fallout. People were so scared that the U.S. Army Chemical Corps started handing out gas masks to the citizens of the United States. To keep children from being scared, they created Mickey Mouse gas masks for them. It was a very scary time to be an American. Number 10. A person's worst nightmare. This photo looks like something from a person's worst nightmare. In the photo is a little girl, a sad-looking Santa Claus, and two of the scariest-looking clowns you could ever see. This is not a scene out of a horror movie. It is actually how they cheered up children in the hospital back in the day. If these characters walked into a child's hospital room today, it would be utter panic. Number 11. A creepy practical joke. It's not uncommon to see photos online today where the photographer used Photoshop to create creepy pictures. That's not something new. This is something that people have been doing for decades. The little girls in this photo took a picture that would have gone viral had the internet been invented back then. One of the girls is laying on the picnic table with her head hidden. The other is popping her head up to make it look like it's one child whose head was cut off. Who needs Photoshop? Number 12. United States soldiers in 1917. United States soldiers today typically wear bulletproof vests and helmets to protect themselves during combat. That was not the case in 1917. Back then, soldiers wore full-body high-tech body armor. This armor must not have been very effective, since you will never see a soldier today dressed this way. Number 13. A real deep thinker. Years ago, people believed that they needed to work in complete silence with complete concentration if they were going to solve problems. This is a photo of a man wearing an isolator. When people wore these, they couldn't hear anything around them. They could only see what was in front of them. It was developed by Hugo Hernsback, but it didn't last long. Today, if someone wants to concentrate, they turn off the television and close the door. Number 14. More creepy Halloween costumes. Years ago, it wasn't just adults who tried to look as scary as possible on Halloween. Kids got in on the act as well. Kids back then believed that the scarier their costumes were, the more treats they would get when they went door to door. Kids dressed like this would go knocking at doors on Halloween looking for candy. If these kids went trick-or-treating based on how creepy they looked, they would likely get an awful lot of candy. Today, people would likely lock the doors and turn off the lights if they saw these three coming up the driveway. Number 15. The scariest Santa ever. Kids line up around the corner to sit on Santa's lap today. He's usually sitting on a big chair, wearing a red suit with a white beard, and he looks friendly and happy. This was not always the case. Years ago, Santa was pretty scary. The little girl in this photo must be used to Santa of those days because she looks pretty happy. If this Santa showed up at a mall today, people would run screaming. Number 16. The creepiest collection ever. The man in this photo is a British Army officer and an artist named Horatio Gordon Robley. The photo was taken in 1895, and he had it taken to show off his collection of the macabre. He didn't have anything to do with severing all of these heads, but he did collect them. They were all heads taken from New Zealand's Maori people. Today, you would be arrested for having a collection like this. Number 17. Killers, butchers, what? This picture looks pretty scary if you don't know the backstory. It was taken in 1901 of 4 students in an anatomy class. They posed with a cadaver that they were studying. They added a quote to the bottom of the picture that is incredibly fitting and respectful. The quote reads, "Man's usefulness ends not in death." The men wanted to give respect to the person who donated their body to science for the students to study. Number 18. A real-life werewolf. This photo makes you think that someone actually got documented proof that werewolves actually do exist. Actually, it is a person who suffers from polytrichia, also known as excessive hairiness. Number 19. The creepiest dummies. Ventriloquists are pretty popular today. In fact, the most recent winner of the hit show America's Got Talent is a 12-year-old ventriloquist. Her puppets were adorable. That was not always the case with ventriloquists. In the 1800s, the dummies could be scary. The one in this photo looks like it was stitched together using human skin. If a ventriloquist came on stage with a dummy like this, the audience would likely go running for the door. Number 20. A possessed audience? This isn't a possessed audience, or an audience of ghosts or serial killers. It was actually the audience about to watch a